Yay, and we're back, Darren. So happy.
Hello, hello.
And I have to think about the time I was living in China. I sold a TV format to one of the biggest production companies in the world. And I asked them, I said, how is that possible that I'm able to sell this to you? And they told me that it's not the idea. Everybody has ideas, but I had everything in place. I had everything organized. So I had the concept of the TV show, but I already had sponsorships ready. I had the whole idea of going on social media ready, found partners to join us. I already had a newspaper article about the TV show. Everything was there, right? And that's why this production company said, we want to work with you. Not because of the idea, because everything was in place. It was a good idea, but everything was ready to go as well. And since that day, I've always find it so fascinating to talk about innovation, but to go one step further, it's fine to have a great idea, but how the hell do you bring that into action? How do you make sure that your good idea that you write down in your little notebook really comes to life and you can make a living out of it, or you can be famous about it, or wealthy, or changing lives? How do you do that? And today, Darren, sorry for talking so much. Today we have Laura and Laurin, and we will be talking about that. And the first day I met Laura was fascinating because she is an expert in bringing that into life. When you have an idea, when you have innovation, what do you do? She worked with big corporations and to deal with these questions like how do you make that into movement into the right direction? And this is one of my favorite topics because we have so many ideas, but if it stays just in the idea book or on your shelf or whatever, nobody can enjoy it. So what do we need to do?
I've actually worked on inventions that one of them I got stolen basically. It's on the market and I can't prove it. It was through this slimy attorney. And I've worked with other inventors, and like I have pocket ideas that I don't know what to do with. So I'm super excited to meet these two ladies today because it is difficult to go from concept to even halfway or even get started. Like that is get the ball rolling. Most people
even
don't
already
know.
Started, right?
Yeah. So or it's just like the octopus movement, right? For me, it was better for me to come alongside you than start something new right now for me. But somehow in my life, I'm going to have to cross that bridge and get my ideas on paper or share them.
Well,
with
maybe
someone.
After an hour, then you're like, oh, but that's the trick.
That's
Let's
awesome.
invite
Let's
them
bring
in.
them up. Let's bring
Yes,
them up.
please.
All right.
Can
Laura,
you do that?
welcome. And Lauren, great to have you both. Thank you for coming today.
So excited to be here, guys. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And I love that story, Dr. Octopus, of the reason why that was successful. I'd love to dive into pieces of that. And I'm so excited to be here with Lauren, my buddy Lauren.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me.
It's so cool. Did I give you a proper introduction, Laura and Laurin? Are you two the angels of making it happen?
Well, let me give you a different metaphor. I'm
Please.
I'm the person out there who said, "Oh, it'd be a great idea. You know, I'd like to birth a unicorn," and that just sounds so exciting, and it's going to bring all these great things to the world. And you are kind of pregnant with your baby idea, you know, your idea, and then when it's time to actually birth that idea, you realize you need help. And once you have it, you're like, I don't even really know how to take care of this. And that's where Laura really comes in, she's kind of like a midwife. Let's bring this baby out and get it safe and growing.
Like an idea doula.
She's an idea doula, yeah.
That's
And
so cool.
Doula,
I love
yeah.
that. I love that, Lauren. Yeah, well, because Lauren
That's cool.
has this amazing idea that she's been working on for 7 years. And when we started working
Whoa.
together, and all of a
That's
sudden
exciting.
stuff started happening. Like,
What's the idea?
tell us.
Tell us.
Idea. Okay, yeah. So ideas are funny to birth, but basically, I by trade am actually a nurse, and then I was home for a long time and had a daughter who was very sick, and she got better, thankfully. My brother-in-law got very sick, and I said, "Whoa, what's going on in healthcare culture? Something's wrong." Took a deep dive into like high-risk work and how do we stay safe, and that brought me to culture and leadership. And where I am now is at a point where, through my studies of multiple things and connecting the dots, I believe that it's time to move on from this telling people to speak up. And I have an innovative approach called speaking in. And speaking in just addresses the flaws behind this completely failing approach. Everyone knows it doesn't work. So I'm out there working on showing people how organizations, both the individual and the organization, can thrive at the same time if you pay attention to the nature and the needs of both. And that's what we haven't been doing. So that's one of them. That's the big one.
And that's what I've loved about Lauren's idea is that it really helps individuals that have ideas within an organization to be able to speak up, or within a culture to be able to speak up and share. Because I'm sure you've had that experience where you shared an idea and then you either got like blank stares or someone laughing at you, and it just kind of like gets squashed, right? And it could have been a really amazing idea, but these really early infancy aspects of these ideas is really delicate. And so that's one of the things I love about Lauren's idea is it really helps those ideas to flourish, to enable that. Yeah.
So why are they always doing that? So why is that in an organizational structure always the case? Then you have a great idea because you're passionate for the company you're working with. It's not even your own company. You're just working for this company, and you're thinking about new ideas during the weekend and while you're lying in bed with your partner, your spouse, and you're still thinking about this company, and then you come up with this great idea, and then your manager is like, nothing. Why is that always? It's for me, it feels like it's always the case that way. Laura, why do you think that is? What is your experience there? Why is it so difficult to just embrace and say, "Oh, Perry, it's so nice you've been thinking about this idea, and I think we're waiting for you to bring this to us, and let's talk about it." Why can't they do that?
Wouldn't that be lovely? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Right?
I think that there is a reason for this, and it's the way that our brains work, especially when you're in an organization, because the purpose of that organization is to do the thing, do the service, make the product. You're in execution mode. And when you're in execution mode, you have systems that you're following, you have procedures, you have things that are expected of you that are the same on an essentially daily basis. And to be able to do those, you are expected to have high quality output, which means you have to lower risk to be able to deliver that. That's what mode we're in when we're at work, right? It's just how we've been trained and programmed as we're working. But the aspect of innovation, the way our brain works non-linearly, which is amazing with innovation, is not that. And when you come in with an innovative idea, it it gets rejected almost like an immune response because it doesn't fit in neatly right away with all the other systems, right? And so it's literally a different part of our brain. Even for linear thinkers, they have nonlinear thinking too. It's just not strengthened, and they don't often switch to that mode of thinking, right? There's a switch of literally being able to go to creative mode. And so to have those conversations, one of the things that really helps is to signal when you have an idea and you want to share it, to signal that this is idea sharing mode, right? This is not analytical mode. This is not, critical mode, analytical, how does this
Sure.
work?
So
mode.
Laura, does that mean when you have a brilliant idea and you go to your manager and you just ask your manager, listen, I have an idea. When would that be a time and place to talk about it? Do you want to have it in email? Do you want me to talk about it in a specific date? How does it work with you? Would that be a solution?
There's not a one size fit all there, but I have some
No?
ideas. I have some ideas to that question. And maybe Lauren, especially as it'd be interesting to hear your take too with speaking in and how that comes to play. So the first things for me that comes to mind is those early conversations of an idea. I think it's best to happen in an informal setting, if possible, right? Because informally, you're not in analytical mode, you're in relationship mode. And relationship mode is more about growing and connecting than it is about executing. And so if you're in an informal setting, you're more likely to let things go. And then it's also for me, I use two particular questions to set up getting feedback on what someone thinks about my idea. I don't use the words, what do you think? Because when you say think, that automatically triggers analytical thinking within the workplace. So I asked two questions. The first one, always the first one is a positive, is what works well, right? Because this isn't something that you're just looking for their opinion on, although opinion is going to be helpful. So you don't ask what do you like. It's what works well for this idea based off of their experience and their understanding of how things work. And then the second question is, what would be even better if we did this, right? Even better if sets up into a build mode instead of a tear down, right? And so it's literally just the way you phrase those questions, for me, helps facilitate that conversation.
What was the first one again?
What works well?
Yes.
What works well?
What works well?
And the
And
second?
what would be even better if? I'm taking notes. Isn't this also the case what we're doing right here? So we're talking about nonlinear thinking. We have guests. We want to talk about specific topics. Isn't this applicable to everything? That when you boldly just present it, it's never the right time. While we're having fun here with each other, just having a conversation, and maybe it connects with someone somewhere out there who is listening to us and watching us or thinking with us, and then starts to create their own thought pattern that connects with whatever we're doing here. But isn't that with everything, and not only with innovative ideas bringing into action? Isn't that about almost everything in life, maybe? Or am I going to
I want to say,
Thank you.
as you're saying everything in life, as Laura, as you were, I think what this is just giving better language, right? Where a lot of our language is old, and I think as we wise up and we realize that old language doesn't belong anymore, I really, just hearing those feels like a breath of fresh air. And I'm like, I don't really need to say these. I need these things said to me. So my son, who's 18, yesterday he had an issue, and I'm a problem solver. Instantly, I'm in 12 different modes. Same with my wife, you know, and sometimes it's just like, shut the F up, D. I just need to get this out. Don't tell me how to fix it. It's none of your business. And most of the time, the honest answer is it's not my business. What I need to do is just be present with this person. And if they say to me, hey, what works well, then that's opening the door. But also what I'm trying to say to Stace and Thomas, if you're listening, is to remind them to tell me, like splash water in my face and say, this is a listening conversation, or can you just hear me right now? You know, so I need to work on that. So this is bigger information for me. And in the corporate world, it is also the case, because if you're in meetings, I'm always feeling like a team player, like I just give out ideas. But a lot of people in corporate environments find that intimidating, or like I'm overtaking. And I've worked in a lot of those teams that I thought were teams that were not teams. They sort of milk ideas and then let me go. Now what I've realized is I have an energy of a startup person, and I can get things off the ground and motivate people and do the odd thing. And so I don't belong long term in this corporate structure, because what happens is they get frustrated with me and I get frustrated with them. So I'm learning that there's time and a place, you know, and like Perry and I work together, and I've put just a few boundaries out, and I try to break them a few times, and he's back at me going, no, health first. I just had a surgery. And he's like, take care of yourself, and then we move on, right? And so that to me feels much better. This language, I want to take this, you know, Perry, as we have more idea sessions, I want that to be the first thing we say to each other, because we have these idea sessions.
What works well, you mean? Yes.
Yeah. And what would be better if, like, I love that. I want to work on that language. I'm going to write it down and hand it to my family and say, throw this at me in a paper airplane.
And I'm curious, Laura and Laurin, and thank you, Darren. I agree with you, but I'm curious in a personal way. Are you using this at home as well, very clearly? And what does your spouse think about that? Like, oh God, you know,
he was watching now. Oof.
He's watching now.
No, if he was, oh my goodness, what would he see? He's pretty funny. I don't know what he'd say. You know, I think personally, I have been forced through my life experiences to be more invitational, because I think an underlying theme we've been talking about here is uncertainty. So with innovation, you don't have the certainty. So certain personality types, we thrive on it, and others, they just are going to pull back. And that also affects, you know, where's your job? And that's what you're dealing with. D-Roo, is that what I call you? D-Roo? And so certain folks, especially innovators, we can find the uncertainty, you know, exciting, and others want to run the other way. So for me, when I had a daughter that was misdiagnosed for so many years, I had to constantly, for literally for her life, extract from people. What do you think? What else could this be? You know, what would you like to have happen in this case? So I had to find the questions that made things more certain. So I got actually, really, I would say that personally, my whole journey was about watching people interact with uncertainty. And so the good thing for us innovative problem solvers is that after COVID, we realized, well, wait a minute, you know, we were still in the Industrial Revolution here, and we think that work is like a factory. But the truth is, when we work in these complex socio-technical systems, I say they're like a jungle. And we have a mistaken view of power. So we think that the power is in the control and power is in the measurement, where really power is in learning and being able to adapt. So speaking in is about convincing leaders that your real power is in being able to learn. It's a shift in what you value as where you think power lies. So there's also power in being able to tolerate uncertainty. And of course, there's the power in the diverse perspectives. I mean, that's where the answers lie. But we have to, who teaches you that, right? What do our language structures even celebrate that? And Dr. Octopus, you used the word before we were backstage. He used the word possibilities. Oh, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. So all of my work is around possibilities. That's the major topic of my work. And because more is possible than you can plan for or imagine. Now, if people are starting to embrace that, right? And now we realize, you know what, we really need those people. And you know what, instead of being that pain in the meeting, they're going to save us because they're going to come up with something we never dreamed of.
I love that power is in learning, because that is so true, especially within innovation, especially as you're trying to bring this new idea to life, because it's not yet a thing, right? It's just a thought. And as a thought, it's free flowing and things can connect easily. But when you bring it into real life, like this real life around us, there's certain things that work and don't work. And so you have to learn what works. You have to learn what doesn't work. There's a lot of what doesn't work in innovation, right? I see head nodding, and I'm looking at the comments on Facebook as well, like, trying to get these ideas across. It doesn't always work. But as you learn more in this aspect of curiosity and really connecting all these other things that aren't traditionally connected, which is the beauty of nonlinear thinking, sets you in the best place to be able to learn and make these things real. And so, that's one of the things that, I think from your example, Dr. Octopus, in the beginning, this broadcast TV example, you had to connect all these people together to make it real, to make it something that a producer can literally see outside of your head, that there's these people that exist that are willing to support you.
And that they can also confirm that they think it works. So when I have an idea, then it's only what I have. But if I have the linear results, that's how I always call that. If I have the linear results of a sponsor, of an article in the newspaper, of whatever, then that really brings people into motion, because otherwise it's just Perry who has a crazy idea. Well, he has many crazy ideas. Why on earth would we follow him, right? But if these things are in place, that works well for that production company. That works very well for them, because then they don't have to do that work of selling my idea. That's not their idea. It's impossible to sell. It's not your own idea. Tralala. But I was still curious. I want to go back to your private life. I'm so curious if your husband, Laura, comes to you with something, and then you would respond, well, what works well? Or would it be even better if, I'm so curious if he gets annoyed then and said, oh, Laura, please, can we not do this? Because this is like, if I say nonlinear at home during breakfast, they all leave, right? They just get out of the room, like, oh no, don't do it here at home. So I'm curious how that is with you. Is that the same thing? How do you communicate with your partner on that field?
So, in a lot of what I do for work, I have boundaries because I coach, and it's a natural thing for me to do, and I can do it for all of my friends and my family. And when I started coaching, I would just ask these questions, these really big open-ended questions, and I would get these like responses, like big huffs. And I'm like realizing they have to be open and in the mind space to be able to think with these big questions. Nonlinear thinkers, you're always in that mode, right? You're ready to go with those big questions, but not everyone is. And so in being able to signal, is this a good time for, I have an idea, is this a good time to explore that? Or should we do it later? Setting that, just what Darren said earlier, setting that expectation up front of like, this is what I need right now, or this is what I'm looking for in this conversation. This is the kind of conversation that I want to have right now, helps tremendously in my personal life. And then we get to choose when we have those conversations and we don't. We still have them. They're really helpful, but it's being purposeful of when.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you do? I have so many questions. I'm just firing them away. Darren, if you're saying, "Oh, Perry, please," I'm just going. So if
I'm
you
gonna lose my
have,
voice, so you keep rolling, my man.
the thing is, when I have an idea, then I don't want to listen to anyone, right? It's it's
Uh,
it's overtaking all of my ability to rationalize, or I'm excited because I'm a visual thinker, so I can see it. You know, I
Mhm.
can see the solution. I can see it happening. And then you're so excited, and your whole system is vibrating, and you're full of energy, and that's it, because nobody is in that same space. What do you do? Yeah, and then you can say in all your excitement, okay, when is it a good time to talk about this? Yeah, and you still have your energy. What do you do with that? How can you bring that into something positive? Because the world is not waiting for you to be excited about a new idea. You know, it's not, it's something that is from you, and
Yeah.
you need to deal with that.
Yeah. You
How do
had
you
that
deal
vision
with
and you
that?
had that vision for a reason, right? And so
Yeah.
how do you go and take that energy? I love that question. So there's this curve. I forget the name of it, but like the beginning of the curve, right? The underneath is a very small amount of people that are early adopters. And then you
Hmm.
have this curve, it goes up, and this bell curve, or the volume underneath, is a lot bigger. That's the majority. You have an early majority, you have a late majority, and then you have the laggards, like the people that don't want to listen, they don't want to change or anything. When you are in this new idea mode, you are looking for early adopters, because those, it's not just when do you talk about it, it's who you talk about it with. Because the early adopters are going to be open to an open conversation. And they may or may not have the expertise. That's okay. Sometimes you just need to talk it out with somebody. And just in doing that, you learn through vocalizing what your idea is. And someone that's willing to listen and bounce things and create with you is the perfect place to do that. Now, that's only in the beginning of the process. When you go through, you start getting that idea together, you have to start talking to more than just the early adopters. But in the beginning, when you have this idea and you need to let the energy out, you need it to grow, that's who you talk to.
Yeah. Cool.
that's very
Is that
helpful.
that's very
It's really
helpful,
helpful.
and yeah, I think
And
you
I
have
could
to trust your
visualize
gut
that.
feeling.
Thank you for
Yeah.
the visual. That was very helpful.
And when you
Well, wait.
think someone is not an early adopter, then don't continue your conversation, right? Find the
It's not
right
the right
early
Yeah.
time.
adopters. No,
It's
Yeah.
just not going to
trust your
work.
gut
It's like
feeling.
talking, it'd be like you and me talking to my dad about this, what we're doing right here. It's not going to, it's not going to happen. It just, he might be
It's
like,
not
that
gonna
was a
happen.
great show you did. And you're like, well, that's not what we're doing. Like the big picture, it's really hard. And then I feel bad, So when you gave the visual, it's like, oh, that's also pump the brakes, man. Like, don't keep going. Yeah, maybe keep it to yourself, which may feel difficult, like Perry, you're saying, with that internal energy, but also we're meant to, diffuse that energy in other ways too. We're not meant to go to bed and just be writing all night and wake up writing in the morning. Like, like share it with a friend or do something. Like, we do need to find a way to kind of diffuse the situation so we can move forward. But it is wisdom to maybe seek those, I guess, what would you call them? I guess early adapters or vision seekers or change makers or whatever they are.
Open-minded. Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, there's not as many of them. So
Yeah.
they can be harder to find.
Never
But
was, because they just aren't around. Like, it's never meant to be like that. It's we're the few. That's
I
why
think
you
that's
make
also
crazy things
why
happen.
the octopus movement.
I was going to
Yeah,
say
Exactly.
I
that
think
the
also the
octopus
octopus,
movement has those
Hmm.
people.
Yeah.
all of them.
Yes.
Yeah, they're
But
all
even if you look, we're global. There's not that many of us. If you look
no.
globally at what's going on, and I'm telling you, Laura, I'm fairly new to the club, and the behind the scenes meetings of even just the hanging out sessions, there's so many fluid ideas and empathy and care and like this, it's really cool to see all of these non-linear people. Like, I didn't have language for what I was looking for, but that it's a place here where you can bring that energy. And there you'll probably find your fellow weirdo in this bunch. Like, that's what, Perry's my fellow weirdo. We can talk all night or all morning. Like, we're always like fighting our global calendars because of time, right? Because once you find the person, you can go through a crazy idea and just be like, whoa, was it good or bad? Or we have this new language now. So it's all
I
of
even
this
bought
is
a
very
little
helpful.
clock, a special clock
Yeah.
with Darren's time zone on it that I have it right this time. So we both have
Yeah.
clocks with each other's time zone on it. So it's 1:30 at your place, and it's
Yeah.
10:30 at my place. This start with the why. I love to talk to both of you with
We're all
that
trying to
holy
read
grail.
this.
Oh, let's read this. Turning a crazy idea into a story, a prototype, a mood board, a painting, etc. helps to get the idea across the linear people and make it less crazy. Also, asking people to pretend they're 5-year-old when you present the idea, that's a very good one. If the 5-year-olds understand. Do you agree with that, Laura?
Yeah.
The 5-year-old?
Well, I mean, I don't want to treat them like one, but although, well, wait, my 5-year-old's here downstairs, and you got to treat her with a lot of respect. She's pretty smart, but yeah, I think the problem is you get so deep. What I think the piece is there, you live and breathe this idea. You understand the arms of the idea, and then you present it to someone else, and it's completely new. And we do probably give them too much, too complicated, too fast because it's so exciting. Right. And wait, can I just say, for people like, here's the thing. I'm not going to say we're Laura's in a different, I don't know you guys that well, but the beauty of what Laura does is that she's an expert on this process. So she can normalize all of this. You're like, well, what happens when you talk to your family? Or why is it that, what do I do with all my energy? And then of course she is very visual. She's like, hold on, we have this model. It's great. And
I like that when she does that, right? It's like, oh, look at this. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. Can you do that during the conversation, Laura? Can you just hold up something at some point? Yeah.
Because I'm an innovator, but I'm not an expert on innovation. And people like what Laura can do, like, nope, you're not crazy. This is how it's supposed to feel right now. Breathe slower, breathe faster, whatever we have to do. And you start saying, okay, I'm not crazy. This is how it is when you're an idea person. This is what it feels like to bring it into the world. This is what's helpful and this is what's not helpful, which I was totally, I'm an expert in high risk work, not bringing an innovation to market. So that's the key piece. And to have that support. And then I think the interesting thing you're bringing up is, well, tell me about like when you're this type of person bouncing off workplaces or bouncing off family. It's all a part of it. It's a total life experience.
It's all about Laura, basically. If we want to make innovation work, no, but seriously, that's interesting because when you're an entrepreneur or you want to create a startup, what do? Right? You don't find help into translate your innovative thoughts into reality. What do? You make a business plan. It's sort of, but not really. And you find money and you start building a prototype, and that's it. And you're not thinking about the whole process. So it should be better to think about everything in the beginning. Like, I have this idea, but it's all coming to me. I have another question quickly. We're not running out of time, but I want to ask so many more questions. Start with the why. This is like the holy grail. So if someone talks about an idea or a new business or a new profile or a new portfolio, then the smartest thing to say is start with the why. Is that really true, Laura, Laurin? What do you both think? Is this really the holy grail? does it all start with the why, or do you think differently?
So I think, I have Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, right on my bookshelf right here. I think it's really important to start with the why when for you, not for your idea necessarily. It's like, why is it important for you to bring this idea to life? Why are you leading this idea from a thought to a thing? It's important for you to have that clarity and that understanding, that depth and connection, because innovation is hard. You're coming up against so many barriers, and the transformation of this non-real thing into the real world is not an easy process. And so you need that fire, you need that passion, you need that to fuel your resilience as you're moving this thing forward. So that's personally how I use start with the why, to connect yourself to what you're doing, to be able to fuel yourself through that process.
Beautiful.
And Lauren's heard me talk about that before.
And that fuels me. But I have a comment on that, and their name's going to come to me in a minute, but I am a why person completely for everything. However, I was speaking to someone the other day. They help people in organizations communicate better. And the reality is, based on your personality type, some people, they just want to know the what. Well, what are we going to do? And then other people are much more the how. Okay. So it really depends who you're talking to, and they're very careful to shape, like, even an email so that you're touching everyone, because they just want to get to their part. Because, and a lot of, folks, and don't even tell me why or what, just tell me how to do this, because I'm that busy, which is a sad thing, but some of that actually exists. Like, they just give me the answer, tell me how. I can't even think about it, especially in healthcare. So that's a great question.
Linear systems work like that. Lauren,
I'm only laughing a little because my poor wife has to hear all my ideas, because I get them quite often, and I don't. What I'm, starting with the why or going back to the why, it can be important, especially if you have a lot of ideas, because like, if I'm just saying, oh man, what if I'm inventing the new refrigerator magnet? Okay, that's a thing that could happen. And she'd be like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing now, because it's so much. I'm not a refrigerator magnet person. I don't do magnets. I don't, but I get these crazy ideas. And going back to starting with the why, it's like, what would be the reason to do that? Only to make a buck? Oh, well, then that's actually not what's my number one thing. And if I go down the path of cracking the door and researching, at some point I'm going to run out of energy, or desire, or and then I'm just in a point where I'm in a drag pushing through because I'm in a company I built, which is also my story, because I was building homes for, and they were all multi-million-dollar homes. And it just was not what I cared about. And I didn't know that until like now. It took me a long time to learn that. And I drug people with me. And health-wise, I didn't do well there, right? Physically, I had issues. And it's because, going back, my why sucked. It was about survival. Like, oh, I'm just trying to make this money so we can survive. Like, I didn't care really about even the next step. I wasn't thinking about that. It was paying the bills and doing whatever comes next, because I was in a false mindset of, I started something so I should finish it, or I'm the old dumb Marine that just keeps going until my head's broken in half. And that's true. I just go. But the nicer thing for me is to stop and go, wait, what are we doing here? Why do I want to, and so the other thing we talked about, you guys, which I feel very encouraged and thank you, was the learner of the room. and how important that is to, and I know that, how I see that, and I know that's so important for what our society needs right now and like issues. We need the people with the crazy ideas because, I mean, from my perspective, our systems suck everywhere. And we need new things because we're new people. We're a new people than 100 years ago, and we're on systems that were some 200 years old or longer. If you look at culture, really, they're 1,000 years old or blah, blah, blah. And what we want is to go back to, with my children, my daughter, 23, I was like, stop working until you know what you're doing. And I got your back, and come here and get healthy, and let's figure that out together, right? Because there's not enough kids that have the opportunity to think about where they're going and why they're going. It's always like, go to college because that's what you do. But I know more kids that are more confused because they just did that than on the outside of, let's just slow down a second and find the why. And if you don't have a why, get one. And don't do the next thing until you have one. And to me, that's really important. It's really important in this setting because, I mean, if you're new to the octopus movement, it's the idea, people, we're the ones at the table that are speaking out or not speaking out, but that have the idea. And often we've been abused by the world because of our, what the world calls a mental health issue, or what the world calls a broken identity in your brain, like as if ADD was a bad thing. Like, I can do a million things in my brain at once and write a record. Like, come on. It's a gift, and we're told to shame ourselves into the box. And so, I mean, this is a breath of fresh air with new language. And not only that, but the permission to go, oh, those people at the table, that's fine. They didn't get it because they're on the other side of the curve or stuck in the middle. And I'm always going to be in the beginning. And if I'm always in the beginning, it's always uncomfortable with these people inside the curve. And if I know that, well, then I can know I'm walking into a culture meeting. I'm going to be uncomfortable. I may not be accepted. Allow myself to be the weirdo, allow myself to be myself, and then leave. Dip in, dip out, and find my people. I didn't know how to do that. Perry up there in the corner, Doc is my people. And the list got real small, Laura. I used to have all these connections, and like on LinkedIn, I have way too many people I don't know. And there's like 5 out of, I don't even know, thousands. I don't even know them. And there's 5 humans on the whole globe that are this important to me, that have complete access to say your idea is dumb, or give me more, or why aren't you doing your idea, right? And that's what I feel is missing, and feels so loving of a conversation you're giving us both today. It's wonderful to feel. I mean, I'm just I've been in these meetings, and most of the time it ends with me being fired because I know my idea is right. Mm-hmm. Or I'm going to stand up for, the thing that is courageous because I don't care if it hurts. And I really don't care if I piss you off. I really don't. But on the outside, it's wearing, and it's like, yeah, honestly, it's lonely. And where are my people, and what do I do? And, to have I have a wonderful spouse, right? She was also a Marine, so she's as hard-headed as me. We've been married. It's our 25th year of marriage, and we've been through the ringer. It hasn't been wonderful, but we are best of friends because she can say, stop with the ideas, or come, she now just says, just come back to me when you have the end. Like, if it works and it's done, tell me. And that is so fair because I've had so many businesses and ideas and partnerships. And what I'm trying to do is slow down. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I am slowing down and looking for a very particular people group on this earth, and I'm going to connect deep with those people, and we're going to plan a foundation for what's to come. I don't know what the whole thing looks like, but I can tell you it's happening because I've been in closed door meetings where I'm accepted as is, and my ideas suck, and they go stop, and it's just great. There's no these people understand. I don't care if it. You just tell me it's stupid, and I'm good. Nice. Let's keep going. We'll get a new idea tomorrow, right? I love that.
Well,
And,
Darren,
yeah.
there's so much there. There's two things I want to comment on that. That's really amazing. One is, being able to pivot, right? When you get more information of whether it's working or not. But the thing I want to encourage you to think about is don't think about ideas on a good to bad scale. That language, right? There actually is no such thing as good or bad. It works or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's really what innovation is about.
That's powerful one, right? Because in our heads, we want to find the right idea.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Always. Very good. Thank you, Laura. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah. And then that way you also aren't able, you don't attach your identity to these ideas either then as much, because it's more functional, right? It either works or it doesn't. It's not that you're a good or a bad person because you come up with these ideas, right? So you're going to blow up there. What's that?
Well, in that perspective, I wanted to show you something about crazy ideas or maybe bad ideas, and which is not the person. I was I was grabbing this box when Darren was talking because I want to show you this. It was one of my crazy ideas where I've been smoking a lot. I'm not smoking anymore, but years ago I was smoking. And in the Netherlands, you have in Europe, these packages where there's a picture of someone dying on a package of cigarettes, and it says, "Stop smoking, it will kill you." And it's really ugly. So you can't see Marlboro anymore. You see someone with throat cancer and the text, "You're going to be dead soon." And that's the package of cigarettes. And I love things to be beautiful and interesting. So I designed stickers for my package of cigarettes. and I thought, how funny would it be if I would have Evian stickers? So Evian is a French brand for water, and which is super, super healthy. And I thought, everybody wants that on their package of cigarettes. I was seriously thinking that this would be an interesting idea. I created lots of them with art on it. Here you can see that with art. And how cool is that? Yeah, a crazy Damien Hirst stickers. And I thought everybody wants stickers on their package of cigarettes. So when I was smoking, I was having this on the table on the terrace in Paris. And people would come to me and like, "Oh, these are interesting cigarettes. What are those?" I said, "Well, normal brand, but these are stickers." "Oh, but of course it's a crazy idea, and it's good that it's not connected to myself. What on earth was I thinking to create Evian stickers for cigarettes?" But I was seriously convinced that this could be a very interesting business. I even wanted to share a part of the income of the revenue to cancer research. I'm nuts. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, let's not put the attention on something negative, put it on something positive, and it brings more money and we can do better research. But it's a crazy idea. We do have crazy ideas sometimes, and it's good that it's not linked to our personality. It's just a thought, a nonlinear thought.
It is.
Right?
Yeah, you're just making these really unlikely connections that sometimes they work and just a lot of times maybe they don't. But that's completely okay, because that is part of the process. As literally part of the process of innovation is making these unlikely connections and seeing which ones work. And so I think I love that aspect of like, yes, you can distance yourself from connecting with these as part of you, because they're literally, this is just a process literally that your brain is going through. It's not you yourself. And actually, that's one of the things, that's actually one of the key things I teach is don't become attached to your idea, because as you bring this idea from your head into the real world where only, you know, physics, right, only works a certain way, it's going to have to change.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to have to adapt. You're going to have to pivot to make things work. And so if you disconnect yourself from that idea and just really are connected to the end goal, right, of what you're of the impact that the idea is going to have, not the idea itself, you're going to be able to change that idea a lot easier.
Yeah.
Right, because if you hold it dear as dear as your literally your baby, right, you're not going to want to change those certain things. I could see, you know, Dr. Octopus with those with those stickers. If someone tried to tell you to change it, you were not going to change things, right?
Yeah.
I was so convinced for myself. Like,
Yeah.
but can't you all see it that this is brilliant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
you
bet you along the way that little odd thing will come into play, because I've had so many weird jobs and this and that, and I'm telling you, those little, because you figured out how to wrap a cigarette package or something, we're going to be doing something in 10 years and you're going to go, oh, this is how I did that.
Oh yeah, but
And then,
that's for me nonlinear
you know?
thinking. It always comes together. So, and that's why I keep these things, is why I don't throw them away. Even I put them in
Yeah.
a beautiful box that, you know, I had so much effort in creating these stickers, and it was such a hassle to make
Oh, yeah.
the corners in there, and it costed me hours and hours and hours of fiddling. So I'm keeping it in a nice wooden box, and this is my memory, and it's ridiculous.
but
And
you
but it's fun as well.
and you learned so much going through that process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? You're taking away a bunch of stuff that you're not even realizing, that, just as Darren said, later in a random idea session that comes up, it's going to connect and you're like, wait, I know how to do that because I did this crazy thing.
Exactly. Always learning, right?
Always learning.
Lauren, what do you want to say?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say, to make you feel better about your cigarette stickers, one of my
Yes,
first
please.
ideas was about a new type of curtain rod. Okay, so I cannot live the curtain rod down with my family. I was calling it the non-slip super grip, because there's a certain window treatment, okay, that it kept sliding. So I was convinced I was going to make these curtain rods, but maybe Laura, as a woman with curtains, so that my balances would stop slipping. So the non-slip, yeah. And I totally know the feeling. The second thing I'm just piecing together today, where Laura has a foot in both worlds, that in the way to help people, nonlinear innovators, is that what she's saying is, well, okay, you nonlinear people, there's actually a process you have to walk through. It's like, no, not a process. I hate processes. Okay. I want everything now.
Yeah.
But she's like, nope, this has to happen, and then this happens. I'm like, oh, but it's true. And so forcing yourselves to say, okay, at this part of the process, this is normal. This is what I should focus on. This is how I should be thinking. I say the sign of a nonlinear thinker, I can only draw things in bubble charts. I cannot put them in a line. It's just circles, other circles, other circles. So for me to say, okay, this is where I'm at, and this is coming, I've always had trouble with connecting with that. For sure.
You know, Lauren, I love that you bring that up, because the whole process is hard. There's stages that are really hard for linear thinkers, and then there's stages that are really hard for nonlinear thinkers. The whole process is not easy for anyone.
No.
Yeah.
And to that point, Darren, you were saying earlier, you know, about being in a room with the majority people, right? And the idea, and I also saw the Facebook comment earlier about, you know, bringing these ideas to all these different people within a company and not being listened to. as you get down the stages of that process, you do have to get to a point where you can bring it to life enough to communicate it to those people, because that's part of the process. If you're not able to communicate it and share it and show it and for other people to get it, then that idea is not going to come into reality. And so there's different ways to be able to do that, but and it's farther down the process after you've connected with those early adopters, but it is a part of the process where you're going to have to connect with those people too. And there's ways to be able to do that, but just being aware that that is part of it.
What happened for me, and just an idea for you guys, when I was very nervous about this 4-hour session I had to teach, and she's like, well, do you know your content? I'm like, yes. Are the ideas going to help people? I said, yes. She's like, what's the matter? I'm like, they're going to be out of order. And she said, well, then get help. And so my very organized neighbor kid, 21, brilliant, came over, and like we just sat down and he forced me through sections instead of a circular feeling. And what a difference. So that's a place, I have to find help to get things into the sequence.
I agree. What really helped with me in creating the Octopus movement is the manifesto. I think the manifesto, and I think it's so good to have a manifesto in life. Also privately, maybe think about your own personal manifesto. What do you want to do with your life? Where do you want to go? And I wrote 8 pages in one evening when I had the idea of the Octopus movement. So that was Perry going, I know, I need to do this. Writing down like crazy. And I need to have a manifesto. And thank God I have a great friend in Australia who is a copywriter, who creates TV shows and programs and whatnot. He was able to transform these 8 pages of Perry's craziness into the manifesto as it still is today. And it helped so much because he was capable and able, because he's a nonlinear thinker as well, but with a specialty in writing. He was able to transform all my thoughts into a piece of paper that makes sense. The manifesto of the Octopus movement, explaining what nonlinear thinkers are, what neurodiversity is, what multipotentiality is, what I think is the issue, that we're over specialized in this world, that the linear thinking is in the overhand. We need to balance that, etc., etc. Create your manifesto is, I think, even more important than to create a good business plan. But that's my personal feeling. It's a very good, the why is very complete, right? With a manifesto.
That's your why. That's your why,
Yeah.
Dr. Octopus.
Yeah.
But your example and Lauren's brings to light a huge thing that we don't really think about. If you're leading this thing, it doesn't mean you have to do it all. It doesn't. You shouldn't.
You sure?
I'm sure.
Well, it's just like what you and I, once we started working together, right? Taking some weight off or doing these shows, it's when you having a down day or I'm having a down day, I feel differently when I'm in this room or when I'm next to you doing some of this stuff. So
yeah, you can do it by yourself. You can initiate everything, and you can be the engine in starting doing everything. I always say I should be sponsored by Nike. Just do it. My life is all about just do it. I have an idea, just do it. Make it happen. And
we'll call you Air Perry. Hey,
Air Perry.
Listen,
that's a funny one.
Usually you like to keep this to an hour, which means I need to play our outro. Do you want to do that, or do you want to run long?
I want to thank Laura and Laurin. This is a fascinating topic to me personally, for you, Darren, as well. For us nonlinear thinkers, we love talking about this. So thank you so much for being here and talking with us about this. Really, really appreciated it.
Important conversation. Great language you've given us. Thank you both.
I'm so happy to be here with you and everyone that's watching. And thank you for joining Lauren and coming along with the journey. This has been a real pleasure, and things I can talk about innovation and leadership for hours.
We should do this again, don't you think, Doc?
Part 2 is
Part
coming
2.
soon.
But you're going to take the summer off, or we're going to take a month off from these. So this will be our last video for a bit.
Yep,
right?
we will be back in September, October. We will let you know. Nonlinear, we haven't planned it yet.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful next couple weeks, and reach out if you need anything. Laura and Laurin, you guys have been great. And we love you all. Take care.
Enjoy your